Welcome everybody to Conversational Crypto, where we have conversations about cryptocurrencies. We're going over the Ethereum white paper today. We finished the Bitcoin white paper, so the natural next step is to start talking about Ethereum. We'll just start with our first comments here. My comment to this first paragraph is the crypto space changes very quickly. You said followed by Bitcoin by 4 years. So the Bitcoin white paper came out in 2008. The Ethereum white paper was published in 2013. And the Ethereum network launched in 2015. Vitalik was 19, you question. Something like that. Yeah, because he's now, I believe, 27 or 28.
I know, isn't that crazy?
Younger than I am. Yeah, it's wild. He's the youngest self-made billionaire now, because when Ethereum hit 4,000, he's over $1 billion, which is crazy. Let me just read this part. While several years old, we maintain this paper because it continues to serve as a useful reference and an accurate representation of Ethereum and its vision. To learn about the latest developments of Ethereum and how changes to the protocol are made, we recommend this guide. So basically, this was written in 2013. Now it's 2021. There's a lot that has changed. The crypto space changes very quickly. So, but we still want to go over this because it's the foundation of what Ethereum is now. So still very relevant, but a lot has changed. So we'll kind of go over that as we go through these talking points.
Yeah, I'll just add a comment. I think what's cool about open source is that everything is laid out. Everything is laid out. And the contrast to that is, in my old days, is you'd walk into a department and it would take you months or years to figure out how did they come to a conclusion about a particular math answer. And what you didn't see was all the backroom dealings to get there. And plenty of stories on that, but that's my orientation to this. It's so refreshing as you read it. It's like, wow, I can see how business is going to be done. It's super great.
Yeah, and with open source, at the end of this paper, there's all the references to all the previous work that went into to this paper, so you can kind of see the trail of how things got to where they are, and Ethereum is a big part of that. So our next thing, which is very much a part of that, is decentralized autonomous organizations, and I do think the DAOs need their own episode. Eventually we'll do an entire episode on DAOs, because it's still such a interesting thing that's evolving. Just this past week, Bankless, which is another podcast, highly recommend. I'm a huge fan of theirs. They started their own DAO, which I'm a part of, and we're having our first DAO community call after we get done recording this episode. So super excited to see that. It's crazy to see everybody finding their place in what a DAO is and how it works, because nobody really knows. It's still such a new thing. So you put this comment of the most popular DAOs. So let's just take a look at this website, defirate.com. Because I like this. Actually, I found this same one when I was looking. I was like, what are the big DAOs? Like I know MakerDAO. That's a protocol that I've used. I'd heard of the other ones, but I haven't used them, so I'm less familiar. Actually, Gitcoin, I've used Gitcoin. I've donated to a couple of Gitcoin projects to help funding. But I wanted to for MakerDAO.
So it was for me. I'm always trying to get the background. Like we like history. Well, part of history is, okay, who's doing what now? And I don't know. It was hard to find a broader article that was definitive, like here's the 1,000 DAOs that exist. I know that stuff is out there, but that would be something that would be great if a contributor to the podcast, somebody who wanted to jump in, would show us links for that, because that's a huge help.
Well, yeah, and what I'm finding with the Bankless DAO is that there are quite a few DAOs out there, but it's such a new space that they're all trying to figure out how they work. And they're, and there's even some that are trying to bridge DAOs together and help them work together. So it's just a very interesting and constantly evolving space. But I want to show a website that gives an example. MakerDAO was one of the first, debatably the largest and most established DAO in the space. MakerDAO encompasses both the core team behind Maker, and they created the DAI stablecoin, which I believe was the first stablecoin created, if not the first, certainly one of the first and one of the biggest. And so there's the Maker token, there's the DAI token. DAI is pegged to the dollar, so it's always going to be roughly the cost of whatever a dollar is, plus or minus a couple of cents, but not even that. So I want to show, this is a website that I've used in the past to use MakerDAO. So the MakerDAO website itself, you can't actually use it. You would use the Oasis app to create a CDP. But with DeFi Saver, I can actually do a simulation here. So we're going to create a simulation and we'll see. So it's pretty generous. It gives us 100 ETH. That's pretty cool. So we're going to create a CDP, which is a collateralized debt position. And so we've got 100 ETH. Why not? We're going to put 100 ETH in there. And so if we were to make this, we can, you're putting in ETH as collateral and then minting DAI. So if I put in 100 ETH, I can receive 158,000 DAI. That gives me a collateral ratio of 250%. They say here, minimum accepted ratio is 150%. If you go below that ratio, your position gets liquidated, which is obviously not good because then you're going to lose a significant amount of your collateral. So that's why you're not getting the full price. You can't borrow the entire US dollar equivalent of 100 ETH. You can borrow less and you get your collateral ratio.
So I'm not quite sure. You got to walk through that
sure.
with me, John. What are you actually doing? So this is a simulation. So that's great. Mm-hmm. You're saying if you had 100 Ether, then you could put that up and receive 158,000 DAI. And that's because why?
So what a lot of people do is use this to leverage to buy more.
Well, let's go back to my old world. Somebody is going to make money doing it, right? So there's going to be gas or other fees, or there's something built in to make the function work. And how is that happening? And then what do you owe when you pay this back? Because that's usually kind of the experience.
Let's start with one of the most used cases for this. People use it to go leverage long on ETH. They think Ether price is going to go up. They want more exposure. So here, we're going to go leverage and update. All right, so now we're not going to receive any DAI, but we're getting ETH exposure 1.39x. So now we have 139.15 Ether in collateral, but we have where does it show the debt? I think we have to actually create this to see that. But so, all right. So
I've been as I read stuff, having been in the financial business, as I read stuff, I know at some point I'm going to have to dive in deep and really go through it. It looks like this could be an entire podcast. Like
it certainly could. But I just, so this, you're borrowing, or you're putting Ether in as collateral, you're borrowing DAI, and then you can either buy more ETH to get you more exposure to ETH, or let's say you need a loan. If you need $10,000, you can put in your Ether, take out a loan of 10,000 DAI, and then spend that, trade that DAI for USDC or some other, get it into US dollars, spend it to buy a car or whatever you need a loan for. And then you haven't lost your Ether. You just have to pay back that debt to get the Ether out of the collateral. And the idea is that as Ether goes higher in price, you have to sell less Ether to pay back that loan.
Well, yeah, I get that part, but how does that compare to if I was going to go to the bank, right? The bank is paying on a car. I don't
Well,
know.
with a bank, they have to approve the loan. This anybody can do. I've created multiple CDPs.
And what if you don't pay it back? I mean, who's
Well,
gonna?
your collateral is locked in there, so that's why the 150% collateral ratio. If it goes below 150%, they sell your collateral to make sure that the protocol is never minus money. So if ETH price drops and keeps dropping, and your collateral ratio goes below 150%, they sell your collateral to recoup their cost so that they make money, and you lose your collateral, which that happened to me at one point.
I'm that thinker, and I love tables, and I'd want to lay this out with multiple experience, like scenarios. Scenario A, everything goes according to plan, and somewhere in here you pay it back, or you get your ether back, and then lay that out against, when people borrow money. As a former underwriter, that was a role I had in the financial business. As a former underwriter, you were always looking at the morale hazard, which is the people hazard, the guy who's taking you for a ride. And insurance companies, financial service, they have entire groups of people looking out for that. And so this is so foreign to me. And I know it's not just me, it's anybody that's from the financial service business, but that creates a hurdle, and that I'd like us to focus on at some point, to be able to say, well, this is how that actually works. This is why in numbers that it's better, and not just better as a consumer, but better as a business. Does that make sense?
Well, and a lot of it right now is that, there is no approval process. It's if you have the collateral, you can do it. So there's no bank, no third party saying, oh, no, we don't approve this loan. That's not even a possibility. If you have the collateral, you can do it. So here, let's just do this real quick. And so I changed it to 90 ETH because I need some ETH to pay the transaction fees. So here we're going to see how ridiculous some of the fees are right now on Ethereum. So we're creating a leveraged position, and we're going to hit confirm, and you'll see this is just creating the proxy. So there's multiple transactions here. So you can choose cheap gas, regular gas, or fast gas. Going cheap is almost a never good idea, because the transaction could fail, and then you still lose this transaction fee and your transaction doesn't go through. So I typically leave it on fast.
Oh, that was just a pro tip right there.
Yeah, don't cheap out on gas. You will regret it. You will lose more
sounds
money.
like the voice of experience. Does that happen to you?
Oh, yes, for sure. So as you can see, the fees to do this are very high. This is $472 is the max transaction fee. And you'll see that's not even the final transaction. That's just creating the proxy so that they can do on the back end all these, because they're doing multiple things here to create this position.
I see that, yeah.
But so then here's 784. So that is a ridiculous fee, and that fee is not proportionate to how much, we're putting in a lot of money, 90 ETH, but this fee would be just about the same regardless of how much ether we were putting in. So
just give me a percent. What is that? 784 on 90 ether. Ether today is $4,000 roughly. Is that what you're saying? So 90 times $4,000. So 9 times 4, it's $36,000. So what's 784 by $36,000? It's 2%. Well, that's not terrible. I mean, I'm just using roughs, right? But 32,000, 3,300, yeah.
But imagine if you were trying to do this with one ether. So then you're paying $784 on $4,000. Now you're almost 25%. And so that's where the ETH fees are getting out of hand currently, and it only makes sense if you're doing high value transactions. And so that's a criticism of Ethereum right now. They're definitely doing a lot to solve those issues.
It's really funny. You know what this reminds me of? Back in the day, in the insurance world, we used to have a per transaction cost. It's the exact same thing. And what they defaulted to was a percent, because it invited more people to participate. They said, if we do it It's the exact same thing. We said, well, if it costs us $28 per transaction, then somebody doing 2 transactions and small money is going to get really hit hard. So we'll just make it a percent and literally make it up on volume, meaning we'll spread our cost over many. And that's the theory of, insurance. So it's interesting that it's the same figures and numbers and problem solving, just in a
well, and they're using, that's what a lot of these tools are trying to do. Most technologies, they start off by, it's a new technology with infinite possibilities, but we don't know how to use it. So we create tools that have already existed. So this is part of DeFi, decentralized finance, which a lot of people have said a better name, it would be open finance, but DeFi has stuck. So decentralized finance is building traditional finance tools on Ethereum in a decentralized, well, some are more decentralized than others, but the goal is to build these open finance protocols in decentralized ways.
Well, that's why I'm sitting here, because I had the sniff test back in 2013, but then there was nothing. I mean, there was just no, as you navigated, you realized, okay, the programmers are still trying to work out the fundamentals, but I'm back now because I'm saying it's real and it's going to happen. And my job, I hope, is to convert the thinking of the legacy stuff with all these new things to make them better. Because wouldn't it be great if you could figure out how to make that fee work by grouping transactions together? That's what insurance companies do. So
and we'll get to
yeah, I know
most of that gets solved with Ethereum 2.0, but then there's also layer 2 scaling. So there's a lot of work that's being done to solve these issues. But currently, Ethereum fees are a major pain point for the network, because as Ether goes up in price, those transaction fees also go up in price because it's denominated in Ether. So your USD value of the transaction is going to keep going up as the price of Ether goes up. And it seems like their simulation thing has frozen. I've never used this simulation tool. I just found it this morning and I was like, oh, this is really cool that I can simulate one.
Yeah.
But we'll have to come back to this another time.
Yeah, put it in the link. Make sure you link it because I want to follow it as well.
Yes.
Link it to, yeah, right.
We'll add that down there. Oops. So definitely something we'll come back to. And just a quick note, one of the cool things that's coming out, that's one of the most recent apps coming out, is called Alchemix. And what they're doing is loans that are automatically paid back. So you could take a loan out and it uses yield farming to automatically pay back that loan. And depending on how much you take out, it just means that your loan is, your collateral is going to be in there for a longer time. But that's a very, very cool thing that's coming out, and we'll have to do an episode on that for sure.
Love it,
but not today.
Yeah,
there's too much to do.
Paper, and we're already 20 minutes in.
Yeah.
It's all good. It's all good. Yeah. The simulator is cool.
I think we've done this part. Mostly reliant on a cryptographic primitive known as Chaumian. I don't know how to pronounce that. Chaumian blinding. I don't know what that is, but I looked into it briefly. Where did that? It was
yeah, I did some looking and reading as well, and it seems like it's. Let me see if I can pull mine up.
Chaumian binding is a technique for carrying out a transaction without revealing who all are present at both sides of the transaction. So that goes to the privacy thing, which they're also still solving for in Ethereum, because Ethereum, like Bitcoin, you can see all of the addresses, and I can go on Etherscan and check out any transaction if I know the wallet address, and you can see all these transactions. So you may not know who owns that wallet, but you can see what they're doing with that wallet. And so privacy is something they're working on that I think eventually will be solved, but currently it's not you know, extremely private.
You know what's important though about being able to say this? This is that searching for the truth. This is why, my peers, people that are running organizations, they're really hesitant about all this for these kinds of reasons. Like, okay, when you solve that, call me. That's, if I'm talking to somebody, that's what I get. And
well, and I think it's a good thing and a bad thing. So one of the things that happens in DeFi is people start up these protocols and then they do a rug pull, which means the person who starts it up can steal your coins, or they may have some code in there that's bad, and either to steal people's coins, or they mint a bunch of them for themselves and then they sell it all as soon as it gets any value. And people, because they can look on the blockchain, they can see all these things happening. So people call people out all the time where they're like, hey, this is a scam. So it's kind of good that you can see these things and bad. So it'll be interesting to see how privacy evolves on the network.
I was wondering, do we have, so back in the day, 1,000 years ago, it was the public flogging. Do we have a public flogging site for crypto and blockchain? Is there like
I think it's Twitter. Twitter seems to be where everybody in the crypto sphere, everybody has a Twitter account. Even if there's anonymous people that do these rug pulls sometimes, but people still call them out on Twitter. So I mean, sometimes you know who they are, sometimes you don't in the real world. But Twitter seems to be the place where and I'm not big on Twitter, but I don't really post ever, but I will look at other people and see, and there's definitely some crypto drama that happens on Twitter for sure. So I'd say that's the equivalent to the public flogging.
Well, for those that are listening, come back into the site, offer a suggestion. But I would say if you're interested in us pulling together, I'd have interest in doing that, like keeping a log of public hanging. Like, no,
don't
ever work with this dude or person or whatever. Like, just stay away from it, right? Because the advantage of being able to see those transactions is we should be able to say, yeah, this is bad. Oh, you have a list? Nice.
There's a website that lists all the hacks that have happened in DeFi. So it's called Rekt.news. So these are all the exploits that have happened on DeFi. So you can see that there is certainly risk to these protocols.
Put that. Would you do me a favor? Put that link in the show notes, or attach it to where we're talking, because I think that is. So there you go. We're already done. Look at that.
Because there's definitely some people that don't think there's risk, and there certainly is. So I mean, the darn Zoom thing is always in the way of my tabs. But look at here. So there was an exploit on the 13th of May. I haven't heard about this one.
Doge.
This is interesting, actually. The Vitalik becoming a billionaire, he was also gifted $1 billion worth of Shiba coin, which is another Doge meme coin that was, in my opinion, a scam. And part of that scam was giving Vitalik half of the coins in existence, basically saying the only one that can do a rug pull is Vitalik now. So they're kind of trying to get legitimacy by saying Vitalik is part of this, when Vitalik had nothing to do with it. They just airdropped him those coins. And so he sold those coins for Ether and donated $1 billion to COVID India, to help COVID in India. So basically he's saying, I want nothing to do with this. I'm selling your scam coins for Ether and donating all of those proceeds to a COVID relief fund. So I think that's what they're talking there.
Nice. Yeah, I'm going to have to definitely go there, because I think that, yeah. Anyway, all right, keep going.
But even let's look slow. So, we're halfway through the month of May, and we can see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 DeFi protocols have had exploits, and these are varying amounts, right? So this one's saying 24 million, 10 million, 7 million, 10 million. So and actually, I need to spend more time on this and learning about these exploits. I usually hear about them and then don't dig too much because there's a lot that goes into it. But
yeah, I think so. I'm going to add it as future podcast discussions. I'll just put wrecked.
oh yeah, I mean we could do a whole podcast on going through these. That would actually be a really good one, and
Wouldn't it?
find some
I know that
exploits.
for friends, individuals that I know that are running large organizations, they would be very interested, because I think that that's where I think the people that I know, my generation, are hugely skeptic, and that's the basis of their decision making. So before we can present all of this great stuff to them, we have to get their mind out of the gutter of all the trash, because those 7 stories that you just posted on Rect in May are what they're reading, because that's what the current institutions are sharing amongst themselves. And so when I talk to somebody, senior level people at companies, that's what they're saying. They're echoing those stories. I'll hear them. So,
Well,
anyway.
and I think the space has gotten a lot better in auditing these contracts and protocols, that you can look and see a lot of these exploits are the protocols that did not pay for these audits and didn't go through all these testing and released probably too soon, and so then they got exploits. So a lot of those are it's kind of their own fault for not doing enough testing, and but still money got lost, and they were exploited. But the space is getting a lot better in knowing which projects are valid and audited, and which ones are more risky. All right, so let's continue on here. So Sybil attacks. Sybil attacks, let me just read. In a Sybil attack, the attacker subverts the reputation system of a network service by creating a large number of pseudonymous identities and uses them to gain a disproportionately large influence. That's from Wikipedia, the definition. An example of a Sybil attack would be, for example, the Bankless DAO has airdropped tokens to everybody that holds a Bankless badge, which is, you're a premium subscriber, you have a Bankless badge. You can buy these Bankless badges. So the Sybil attack would be somebody buying up a bunch of these Bankless badges and then thus getting a disproportionate amount of Bankless tokens airdropped to them. And the way that they negated that is, before they did the airdrop, they did a snapshot of who had the badges before they announced the airdrop. So nobody knew, you couldn't go and buy all these badges knowing that you would get airdropped these tokens.
Okay, I think you just lost me. Try one more time. You can either edit it out, or other people will be lost and follow the second explanation. Try it again.
Yeah, so Sybil attack it would be, I guess a better example would be creating a bunch of accounts and spamming a network. So like our forum, if there was somebody that they wanted to create, if we had put up a poll to vote, and the voting was a yes or no question, and somebody wants the answer to be no, and they create 100 different accounts and all vote no, that's a Sybil attack.
Oh, got it.
So,
great explanation.
they don't deserve 100 votes. They're one person. They should have one vote, but they've created 100 different accounts. Now they have 100 votes. So preventing Sybil attacks is important in a lot of crypto aspects. It's a very well-known attack vector. Proof of stake. So from the very beginning, Ethereum was designed, it's currently a proof of work system, much like Bitcoin. But even from the white paper, it was meant to move to a proof of stake system. Currently, we're in phase 0 of Ethereum 2.0, which is proof of stake. So let's take a look at the beacon chain. This is an open source Ethereum 2.0 beacon chain explorer. So currently, the beacon chain, we can see that there are 137,443 active validators, 4.3 million Ether staked. And so instead of mining, we have Ethereum stakers. Currently, both chains are operating concurrently, and then at the end of this year or early 2021, they are planning to merge those chains so that ETH1 will become part of ETH2, and there's a whole roadmap. Which
yeah, I was looking and reading that yesterday.
Thought I had a link here showing that roadmap, but I guess not. We'll have to add that in later because I don't remember where it came from. But let's just take a look at a validator here. So let's go to the validator leaderboard and just pick. So here, this shows a validator. So to run an Ethereum validator, you need 32 Ether, and there are protocols coming. You can stake your Ether in pools, so that if you don't have 32 Ether, you can still stake and earn a percentage, but they'll take fees out of it. So like on Coinbase, you can stake your Ether. I think they have that available now. It might be coming soon. But basically, instead of having 32 Ether, you could stake 1 Ether, or I think even down to 0.01 Ether, I think is the lowest amount, and still earn a percentage of return. So right now we can see that he's getting this validator is getting an annual percentage return of 11%. That's pretty good. And as more Ether gets staked, that APR will go down. And
is there a target for that? So that's a business model that people can understand. Go back to that.
There definitely is. I think it shows here.
Yeah, something I was reading from linking to what you linked on this whole topic was pretty clearly that like the future of Bitcoin and its pricing, the zero inflation model, that's a whole discussion. So
yeah, I think I have it linked
really
later.
You're really developing an entire new economy.
Absolutely, yeah.
And what's interesting is I keep thinking that the economy will be built on the one that most users use. And so the race, and I'm hearing this, but maybe not directly, but maybe it is, just not where I'm listening. But you know, the organization that wins will be the one that everybody wants to use. So that's why
I think there's room for multiple blockchains to be successful. My favorite is Ethereum. I think it's going to be the most successful, but I don't think it's going to be the only one. I think there's room for multiple blockchains to exist and serve different purposes. But obviously, that's all going to evolve as time goes on. So,
but you'd almost say that Ethereum isn't really a blockchain. I mean, clearly it is, but it's that platform that everything can get built on, and it's what gets built on it that's going to make the difference. And that's what I'm talking about. So, like,
yeah,
my personal pet peeve is, you know, in the payroll space, because that's the beginning of the economy, is how people get paid, because then you have their account. And then their account gets used to buy goods and schools and services and cars and houses. And so that ecosystem makes sense to me. But anyway.
Yeah, and I think that doesn't happen until the high fees gets sorted out. Once fees on Ethereum are reasonable, it opens up a ton of different avenues that are not possible currently.
But what is reasonable? See, this, like, if you look at, if maybe I should do this, I'll go do some research on what it currently costs you to have money in the bank, or to use the legacy system. What is the cost? And if you tore that apart, the percent is way more than the 2% we just saw a minute ago that you showed me. even as high as it is currently. Now, it was a large dollar amount, but you know, I wouldn't throw it out. I mean, I think especially over the promise over time. So anyway, that would be, I'll add it to our list of podcasts. But to
But for
actually,
example, if we're doing payroll, if somebody's getting paid $500 a week, for example, and there's this fee of $700, I mean, that's not accurate,
no,
but
no, no.
for example, you know, it can be that ridiculous at times, and so in that instance, it just doesn't make sense. So the fees are definitely prohibitive for a lot of things right now.
Well, okay, but let me ask it this way. If I had a contract, so I'll just propose this. The contract was my payroll, and I'm a small business employer of 10 people. Can I pay a fee for just one check to all my people that goes to their accounts because I have a contract? Now, the contract has its own separate fees. I'd pay extra. But because as I'm reading this paper, it sounds like that might be a possibility.
Yeah, it would be done with smart contracts, but there it would be there would be multiple transactions, but each time you're trying to send to an account, so for each employee you're trying to send money to their wallet, each employee would incur a transaction fee every time you're trying to send to a wallet. So the transaction fees in that instance would build up to quite a lot.
Well, let me give you an example of a different way of thinking about it. If I have a trust and it's my retirement plan, as an employer, I have to write a single check. That's a single transaction. Now, the account it goes into is for each employee. And so, you know, if the contract says I'm going to keep building an account for those people, but it's not an Ethereum account, but my ledger is within Ethereum because that is protected, and the employees can view it or see it. So that's the transparency. And the transaction is once a quarter. That's the minimum. I would probably be more current than that, but not more than 15 days from payroll. So it could be weekly, monthly. It's probably the worst. But, you know, those kinds of things are what I think about. So as I'm hearing about this, I'm like, okay, we can get around the fee because the employer writes one check a month. And yes, it costs him money, but he's putting $100,000 in a month for his whatever X people. Then the fee is 1%. That's way less than he's paying today.
Well, I think that gets to layer 2 solutions, which that deserves multiple episodes, and I don't even know enough. Like layer 2 is such a new thing that they're doing, but it is what you're talking about, like batching transactions, and
yeah,
and
that's
that
what
goes back to Merkle trees, where they're creating all these transactions on the layer 2 of Ethereum, and then the proof of that goes to the layer 1. So you're still getting the security and decentralization of the Ethereum network, but you're not paying fees because it's on this layer 2 where they're batching everything together. And I don't know enough about it to talk much more about it today, but that definitely deserves a couple of episodes in the very near future.
Yeah, so you're right. I was putting that together in my brain because I was reading it yesterday. I spent a long time yesterday pulling all this together. So yeah, that's not the paper here, but
yeah, that's definitely what is happening in Ethereum right now. Like people are working on that, just like you're talking about. So it's not fully figured out, but they are working on it. That's kind of what is the most current thing. That's super exciting is those layer 2 solutions.
Nice catch, John. You caught me. I was throwing it to the corner of your tennis court, and you got it. So sorry.
That's all right.
Great. Keep going.
It's a big part, and it's definitely something that I'm reading about and researching and want to learn more. And it'll be an episode very soon. All right, so let's see. So proof of stake has always been on the roadmap. We will do more about proof of stake for sure. From a technical standpoint, the ledger of a cryptocurrency such as Bitcoin can be thought of as a state transition system, where there is a state consisting of the ownership status of all existing Bitcoins and a state transition function that takes a state and a transaction and outputs a new state, which is the result. In a standard banking system, for example, the state is a balance sheet. A transaction is a request to move X dollars from A to B, and the state transition function reduces the value in A's account by X dollars and increases the value in B's account by X dollars. If A's account has less than X dollars in the first place, the state transition function returns an error. Hence, one can formally define, and then he's got the mathematical formula. But so this is a great example of what I find the terminology can often be confusing in the crypto space. But once you understand the terminology, it can be more simple than you thought. State transition system sounds complicated, but it's a pretty simple concept. It's changing A's balance to B's balance, changing that X dollar amount from A to B. That's pretty simple. And I think there's a lot of instances of that where the terminology can be, if you don't know what they're talking about, you're like, oh, that sounds really complicated. When in reality, a lot of these concepts are fairly basic. Some of the technology can get pretty deep, but a lot of the concepts in cryptocurrencies can be readily understood by most people.
That's really what you said before, which is they built it on what we currently know because it's what we know. And the evolution, that's where I want to be, is pick this thing up on the evolution of we quit doing things remotely what looks like before. And that'll be fun. That'll be fun.
Yeah, and I think that's definitely, if you look at any previous technology, the internet is the typically used example, and it's a great example. When the internet first started, people were building websites that were digital equivalents to analog things. They were making newsletters and yellow pages.
Send it out. Right. Email their newsletter and announcements.
Right, because people didn't know what was possible. And so a lot of these new technologies start off by creating known things that are used today on top of these new technologies. And then eventually the new technologies are like, oh, well, we can create things that were never possible before. So that's the super exciting part about crypto. And I think it's just kind of starting to get to that point where it's creating things that we've never seen before. But it's still kind of more in the vein of currently creating existing structures. So I think we're almost to that tipping point where things start to get crazy and we see all these wild things we've never seen before. So that's the most exciting part to me about this space.
Yeah, my only comment is it's funny that the legacy stuff is built on people's money and finance, and that the reason a business banker wears a tie and a nice jacket is they want to be trusted by the person that comes in with their piggy bank of cash. And this just feels so unlike that. Think about people's experience with tech. Their phone breaks, they get hacked, Facebook doesn't work. And so for them to turn over all their assets to this, and there's so much work to get done, like the meeting that you're going to after this, the media side, getting it to be comfortable and language people will accept and understand. And that's really what we're trying to do, is just say, hey, here's the truth of it. Let's learn it all together, because over the next 20 years, it's going to be a lot of learning, and it's going to be
absolutely.
Picking, in 20 years from now, it's Google circa 1998 or Amazon to today. I mean, look how different those two companies are and what they went through, but that's what we're looking at. I mean, Netscape, does anybody even know that exists anymore? Right. But I could go back in my own personal history, and I can go back to, are you ready? Before the ATM. You didn't get
I don't even know when the ATM became a thing, to be honest.
I remember being, so it's really fun being in my seat and being as engaged as I am in tech now, finance and all of this. It's because I can remember going into, I think it was Capital Savings and Loan, 3 blocks from home. Dad took me in, and I opened my first checking account, and the lady took my hard card. There was a card, and she stuck it in the machine, and the machine recorded my balance. And then when I gave her cash, she stuck it in the machine and it recorded the transaction. And here we're so that's double ledger
So
accounting.
that was
and what this is
a
doing
state
is
transition right there.
exactly, and they're doing it instantly. Well, not quite, right? So anyway, yeah, it's all great stuff. It is really great stuff, and getting the scary part away from it, but being honest about the truth of it. It is, I think.
Yeah, and there definitely are scary parts to crypto. There's a lot of ways to lose your money. There's like those.
So said John.
exploits.
End of crypto. Game over.
Yeah. Right. Oh, there was an exploit. Somebody stole $10 million. Shut it down. It's all done. Or a lot of people are saying like governments are going to shut down crypto. I don't think that's ever going to happen. They can try.
Well, I mean, look at Coinbase. For it to be popular and accepted as it is, and that's a thing, they've had to get along with the government. So
absolutely,
yeah. Terrible and horrible until it becomes terrible and horrible. Right? That's what happens. People live within the constraints of government until all of a sudden the government is too onerous. And so we'll see. I mean, this certainly will keep certain actors in government at bay.
Because and so another option. An interesting
I was thinking about this. John is really funny. I was thinking about this earlier, and I was thinking, really, what crypto offers is a version of cash. You and I aren't near each other, but if we were, if I took a $10 bill out and I handed it to you, done. There's no tracking. There's no, it's thanks, John, or here, go buy flowers, or whatever, And that's what crypto promises, I think, is an ability to make that same kind of trusted transaction or value that you could give to someone. And if they remove that, I don't know that it makes any sense to have it, because then it's just like Visa, but more transparent. There's nothing wrong with that, but that's not it's like there's multiple tiers. Replace what we have. Yeah, okay. Make it better in some regards. Yeah, okay. But make it so that it's like cash replacement. Wow. Right? Do what you want with it. And you have to track it if you're going to, play nice with the government, because like I want government utilities, police and fire and my roads and water, and those are all really good things. What I don't want is the imposition of the government, whatever, and we've seen that.
Well,
anyway.
So going back to the Vitalik donating $1 billion of crypto to the COVID relief fund, India is trying to make cryptocurrencies illegal, and I need to do more research on that. But I know, I don't know if they've made it law or they're just talking about it. But so there are governments that are trying to block people from using cryptocurrencies. And it'll be interesting to see how that plays out with governments. But I think cryptocurrencies win, honestly.
Well, what worries me is governments controlling crypto. Right. So that would be worse.
Well, and that goes back to the China owning 60% of the hash rate, which
exactly.
Let me jump to. No, we'll come back to that. Because there's a comment in here about Vitalik saying that was an issue in 2013 when he wrote this paper. So we'll get to that comment. Let's go to this one. So